Hello, I'm Danielle Achiempong,
I'm Dylan High.
I'm Ellie Kleinwort.
And I'm Travis Windelharth.
and we are part of the New Directions program. Initially funded by the Institute for Museum and Library Services, New Directions in Audience Research is a special initiative of the University of Washington Museology Graduate Program, partnering with the Woodland Park Zoo. New Directions is designed to train museology graduate students to understand, support, and engage in audience research and evaluation within informal learning settings. A key component of the training is partnering with local museums who serve as learning laboratories where students work to conduct on-site audience research under the guidance of evaluation mentors and support staff. We completed a formative evaluation of the Science on a Sphere exhibit at the Pacific Science Center in Seattle, Washington. The Pacific Science Center is located in the Seattle Center and seeks to inspire creativity, learning, and interest in math, science, and technology. Science on a Sphere is a 6-foot diameter sphere animated with dynamic planetary displays. Science on a Sphere was developed by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration to help explain complex environmental processes to people of all ages in a way that is captivating and intuitive. Images, movies, and information can be projected onto the surface of the sphere, creating a three-dimensional rendering of the data. Over 500 datasets are available online for use on the Science on a Sphere, and illustrates information on astronomy, earth science, and other dynamic phenomena. This Science on a Sphere exhibit at the Pacific Science Center is located in the center of an open gallery containing various exhibits related to astronomy, the Puget Sound, and health and wellness. This space around the exhibit acts as a thoroughfare connecting several gallery areas. The purpose of this formative study is to evaluate different treatments of Science on a Sphere at the Pacific Science Center to determine the optimal methods for SOS to present data and science while engaging visitors without the use of interpreters. This study is a formative evaluation that creates a baseline data set, illuminating the ways visitors interact with the auto-run program. In particular, our study addresses the following research questions. Which presentation elements engage visitors most effectively? What is the nature of visitor engagement with SOS and its space during the auto-run program? What are visitors most interested in seeing? To what extent are visitors making a connection between the sphere and the surrounding exhibits and programs?
For the purpose of this study, engagement is defined as performing one or more of the following actions: intentionally approaching the sphere, sitting on a bench, having a discussion around the sphere, pointing at the sphere, lingering near the sphere, and taking a picture. This study took an experimental approach by controlling for several variables to determine which variables affect visitor engagement with the exhibit. These variables could be controlled without intensively altering the pre-programmed datasets. The variables selected for this study were the datasets that were displayed on the sphere, the presence of a question prompt, and rotation of the dataset on the sphere. 3 datasets were selected from the content areas of astronomy, earth science, and oceanography. These datasets were grouped into 2 short playlists and 1 long playlist. These playlists were displayed on the sphere without a question prompt or rotation, with a question prompt, with rotation, and with a question prompt and rotation. To address our evaluation questions, the research team used 3 instruments: an observational timing and tracking behavior checklist, a follow-up survey administered to individuals tracked in the observational instrument, and a behavior map. Our sample targeted adult visitors in the gallery and used a convenience sampling strategy. The results from these instruments suggest that visitors are more engaged with the Science on a Sphere exhibit when a question prompt is displayed on the sphere. The average number of engagement behaviors and stay times increased when a question prompt was displayed. While visitors did stay longer and engage more with particular datasets, there was no correlation between visitor engagement and the content area of these datasets. Each dataset appeared to stand on its own. Visitors tended to engage most with the ocean currents datasets, polar orbiting satellite, and the black carbon tracker dataset. When visitors talked about the exhibit, the conversation most often revolved around explaining or discussing the content of the sphere to the other members of the group. Also, A large portion of the sample mentioned that they talked about a specific geographic or event location on the sphere. While visitors appeared to be more engaged when a question prompt was displayed, a small portion of the sample stated that they talked about the question prompt with their group.
During the time of the evaluation, visitors stayed at the sphere for an average of 50 seconds. The most common engagement behaviors observed around the exhibit were pausing to look at the exhibit, pointing at the sphere, and discussing the exhibit with others. Groups with more adults showed more engagement behaviors and stayed longer at the sphere than groups with children. Children appeared to have a strong influence on group engagement with the exhibit. Visitors reported that children in the group often guided the rest of the group either towards the exhibit or away from the space. 64% of the visitors who reported seeing the sphere said they decided not to stop to engage with it. The most frequently stated reason for passing by was that they were attracted to another exhibit or were distracted while walking through the space. The visitors who did stop to engage most often stated that they stopped because they thought the technological design of the exhibit was interesting or the exhibit was visually appealing. Responses from the follow-up survey indicate that visitors were most interested in the content displayed with a particular dataset, which was coded as a direct reference, as you see in this chart. Over a quarter of the respondents mentioned that they were most interested in the static qualities of the exhibit that do not change with each dataset, such as the technology and physical design of Science on a Sphere. Just over 20% of visitors surveyed said that they were most interested in the qualities of the exhibit that changed with each dataset, such as the colors or movement of a particular dataset. While many of the visitors we surveyed did not have anything in particular that they found uninteresting about the exhibit, several mentioned that they thought the exhibit lacked adequate interpretive material, such as explanations and signage. A number of visitors also mentioned that they thought the datasets played for too long and wished that the datasets would change more quickly.
The majority of visitors interviewed with the follow-up survey and the reflective map indicated that the exhibits surrounding the Science on a Sphere did not influence their experience with the sphere. Visitors did not appear to make a connection between the information on the sphere and the information in surrounding exhibits or programs. To conclude, the use of a question prompt appeared to increase visitor engagement and stay time around the exhibit. Visitors are engaged with specific datasets, but this is unrelated to the content area. Visitors were most interested in particular datasets, such as the ocean currents dataset, and its dynamic qualities, such as its colorful animated display. Visitors would be more interested if more interpretation about the datasets were incorporated into the exhibit. And finally, visitors generally don't report making a connection to other exhibits. Our recommendations for the Pacific Science Center and further evaluations of the Science on a Sphere exhibit are to add more interpretation explaining the information in the exhibit, such as a question prompt or answer, explanatory information, and physical signage. The Pacific Science Center should select datasets that are attractive and relevant to visitors' interests, which could be determined in future evaluations. Thank you for watching. If you have any further questions, please contact the New Directions program at the contact information following this snapshot, or look for the full report on informalscience.org.